Ever since Isaac Newton and the Enlightenment, this has been the idea that humans are creatures of reason, and that if we can undo the shackles of ignorance and bigotry, which at the time basically meant religion, kind of like today really, we could free our true inner selves, the rational animal beneath the irrational. And we'd all be logical thinkers, scientists, objective and unbiased, and that was who we really are. Except, turns out that's not how we work at all, because as information got disseminated and became more readily available to all of us, and having a college degree was no longer a rarity but something widespread, the ability to reason properly didn't spread as quickly as the information itself. In fact, we could say that the ease with which we are able to find all information has unearthed our deep basic tendencies, and that is that we want to be biased. We want our bubbles. We want those filters. Now, I've mentioned here before the neuroscience study published in January that basically shows how when we're shown facts and data that contradict our deeply held beliefs, we don't accept those facts, but instead we double down on our false beliefs. And our brain activity on the neuroimaging scans resembles that of a person under attack by a wild animal. That's the fight or flight response. But this goes further than that. I was listening to the You Are Not So Smart podcast, and they were citing studies that show how we all have a cognitive threshold that we have to pass before we can realize we are wrong and then update our beliefs. And usually that happens when 30% of the information we are exposed to disproves our notions. The problem is, most people never reach that 30% threshold, and that's because of something called active information avoidance. The idea is that there's so much info out there and it's so easy to access, we just can't pay attention to all of it, so we become way more selective. There's criteria to know that you're engaging in active information avoidance. 1, the info needs to be useful or relevant to you. 2, you have to be aware that the info exists. And 3, the info has to be easy or free to access. Yet, you still might be avoiding it. And experiments show that subjects are actually willing to lose money in order to avoid being exposed to information they don't like. This kind of goes hand in hand with those other studies where over 50% of liberals and conservatives would rather lose money than read lists of arguments contrary to their political beliefs. And yes guys, sadly, the liberals were more guilty of this, even if just slightly. But is this all that revolutionary idea? Because it seems quite obvious to me. I mean, I sometimes won't look in a mirror before bed if I've eaten too much that day. I don't want the aggravation of seeing my belly. And how many times have you not checked the bill if you thought it was going to be expensive? Or were you were too scared of looking at your bank account? Or you refused to call a doctor about something? It's the ostrich effect. It's just, you're burying your head in the sand, and we all do that. So basically, the more info we have, the opposite of what we think should happen happens. We get polarized instead of more reasonable. And we vilify and dismiss sources that disprove our own notions, and we call it fake news, and everyone does this. And this is all precisely because of our increased control of what information goes into our brains. Click unfollow, So my question for you to consider on your own time is, how does this manifest in your life? Are you genuinely open to listening to facts that could distress you or disprove your notions? Or are you, like most people, engaging in active information avoidance?